we can jump right in because you've sent me a good introduction to the game. We've talked we've talked about many issues on your mind at the site. I feel as though somebody, pulled the cork out of the barrel.
Yes, exactly.
So
there is a lot going on.
To get to the game, which is what we really want to talk about.
Yeah.
We have a basic question about combat experience and energy. That's our that's our big issue.
Yes.
To look at the other things, the context you've given me first. So what I'm going to talk about now isn't really where I want to go, but I want to kind of talk about a little bit. One of them is that you have a colorful situation, which you've described as weird fantasy with touches of grimdark, with some investigation orientation. It's not just a pitched battle. There's something happening in a scenario, something happening in a situation. And that there's, you talk about the wandering problem solvers, the ultimately heroic fantasy.
If you want, I can maybe frame it a bit better in a few words. And basically the idea is that, why do I say the heroic fantasy? It's because I played a lot of games that promised, grim, dark experiences, and then you end up with a game that plays like D&D, but there is some special effects with blood, and that's not what I have in mind.
Right.
But I come from another point. I mean, I don't promise, because I think that if you want to do something grim and dark, you have to do something. I'm gonna quote Circle of Ends because I like the perspective of having Dark Ages perspective and the right amount of technology, the way you approach the topic in a non-heroic knights and stuff and dragons and Dragon Slayer and stuff like that fashion. And I think that's more honest to the concept of grimdark, but I don't want to sell this, as an idea, as when people sell you the grimdark thing, they say it's realistic, it's very similar. It's not. Basically, my idea is that the experience is very similar to the D&D experience. So you have larger than life people doing stuff that, if you stop for a second, doesn't really make sense, because you can't fight a dragon, you can't fight a giant, you can't survive 25 orcs. Mm-hmm. But two things basically are, the bases are different, which is it's not based on the idea of dungeon crawl. Now, a lot of people, I'm saying stuff that is really obvious to you, I feel, but a lot of people don't play D&D as a dungeon crawl, but the rules, the way they're written, they are dungeon crawls, they work around that idea. So it's not written expecting you to run dungeon crawls. You can, but you don't have to. I like to play this with is create a situation. The DM creates a situation, and I could make examples of playtests and stuff like that, but let's be simple. Let the players explore it, and at some point there is a hunt. You have found out what's going on. I call it hunt, but basically it's the problem-solving part. There's conflict, and there's resolution. There is, I need to play 6 combats today for this to work, and stuff like that.
Sure.
It's basically one big fight more than 15 small. Okay.
Right. Okay. Let's take a look. Mm-hmm.
And the second element of this is that there is a lot of work on the actual combat part, because the idea is that we are not going to have 15 encounters every night, so you can get some kind of fun feedback at some point. We are going to have probably 1-2 encounters, and so they need to be as entertaining as possible, in the way at least we feel it's entertaining. And so we need to invest maybe a good way to summarize this, even if I don't like this question, is that we need to have set piece combat.
I understand what you're talking about. Right. I understand what you mean. Yes. Okay. With this in mind, clearly, I'm beginning play with a character that I have invested time into just getting the numbers onto the sheet and the words onto the sheet. I've invested time in this. And I've got my particular profile of talents. I've got my build, right? There's a build here.
It's a correct expression, yes.
So now that I've got that, if I'm going to throw this into this kind of set piece oriented combat situation, I'm going to want this to be fun. I'm going to want to say afterward, I put everything I had into this. I put everything into the build. I put everything into the conduct.
Yes.
Right, during
Makes
play.
sense.
And the options and the moment to moment situation needs to be exciting to me.
Yes.
Now, with this in mind, we have a slight difficult balance, and I might be saying something completely obvious, but there are three sets or types of rules that we need to sort of remember we're working with. One of which is that we're bringing in highly specific expectations from previous play and from our sense of the proper way to play. And those are sometimes not as necessary as we thought, right? So you're saying, all right, and in this case, we're talking about 4th edition D&D, which both you and I love, right? So we're bringing in things from it, and we're saying, okay, there are things that we just know, and they are what they are.
Yes,
and so
absolutely.
Some of them, I'm going to say that some of those may deserve critical review. Okay. Not because they don't work, not because they're bad, but are they here for any other reason except that we feel like they always should be? Okay, so that's one thing.
Sure. Makes sense.
Yeah, and then there's the next set, which is what I think of as your practical structural elements. And the best example is that great diagram you gave for an attribute, which was dexterity. And you have an instrument of play there, right? You've got you tilt the die to a different dot, and you know what size the die is, and you know what its different extreme forms are. Yes. And you've solved a lot of. This is an instrument that solves long-standing and irritating debates. What does dexterity mean anyway? Isn't dexterity simply your fingers, right? And then. Yes. No, it's how fast you are, really. In nowhere except role-playing text is dexterity, how fast you are. So, you know what I mean? These irritating debates that have gone on for
like, for example, if in the Olympics, you watch the top tier, I don't know the right word, I think it's bowman, don't know what the combination, but people shooting with bows.
Right.
And everybody is overweight.
Right, exactly.
So, the guy have great dexterity. Dexterity now when playing
completely. So we can go into this discussion for role-playing rules for years. And I know we can do it for years because we have done it for years. So what I'm saying is that you have an instrument here, right? A visual instrument that at least says, we know, tilt your die where you want and shut up. Right?
Yes.
So
that's the idea.
Right. So what I'm saying is that you have developed through play, I'm sure, a number of these practical instruments. Some of them are mentioned in your text, and then others are, I'm just looking, okay, if they put effort into it at that level, if you did that at that level, I'm sure you have plenty of others scattered through the system of these kinds of practical instrumentation. Now, here's the only bad news about that, because by and large, that's just good news, right? All of that's good news. Here's the only tiny bad news about it. That kind of effort and imagination, practicality that you've stuck in the next question is, okay, what is it doing and do we need it?
Yes,
because you see how hard that is to give up if the practicality is so good, if the instrumentation is so good. It's a really rude question to say, is it worth doing?
I think this is why I took the chance to do this now.
Yeah.
Because
it's
I have a lot of work in front of me.
Yeah.
Once I'm sure of the basis of the basic building blocks, but I need to be sure. Okay, I don't.
Yeah. The worst thing that can happen is to have someone like me come in late in the process, right? Nobody's. I'm not happy then. You're not happy, right? So then let's finally get to the part of these three things which is the most fun, right?
Yes.
With the one that really matters the most, which is when I employ an option, a rules technique.
Yes.
Do I feel as though I am excitedly manifesting what the character is doing, or more accurately, anybody, whatever it relates to, what I say might actually imply a little bit about what someone else is doing or some aspect of the environment. If I say I'm dodging over here,
Yes. Yes.
So anyway, but the point is, whatever I'm saying, I'm working with what I know about the fiction, and I'm excited to do it, and that option lets me do it.
Yes.
Right? So there's a curious mixture of freedom to do what I want, constraint, what the options actually are, and expression. Does the option actually make me feel like I'm getting it in there?
Of course.
In many games, not all games, but in many games, if I want my character to hit harder right now than he did before, this particular time, I want to hit harder. Now, in some games, there is some kind of mechanic to do that. In other games, I have to just see how the roll turns out, and if I get a good damage roll, I guess I hit harder.
Yes.
Regardless of what I said. I'm not saying every game needs to have that mechanic. I'm saying that I'm interested in it here because energy is that kind of mechanic. We knew that I blocked, right? Here comes the Minotaur's axe.
Yes, of course.
Knew I
we need to know
because
how strong was that. Yeah.
Right.
And what I wanted to, I think the first step in my mind, but doesn't mean it's the right first step, is that I wanted to, seal the way the IIEE worked, because right now there is a lot, and it's also asymmetric between players and the narrator. So you do it one way for the players, and you do a slightly different way for the creatures. I kind of want pieces are making everything that happens as much as possible about the player. I mean, it started from when players get to talk, and that's why we play the kind of as an active action from the player. I mean, it stops being, you spend very little time telling what the monster, and you dedicate more time telling how do I survive.
I completely get that.
That's the idea.
It works fine. Let's take a look at the fact that you have a lot of busyness in before that point. I mean, what we really want to talk about is the axe has hit, right?
Yes.
And I want to know, and it was always going to hit, because I said I was going to block. It's not like the axe is going to whiz through the air. It's going to hit. He's striking. I'm blocking. It's going to hit.
Yes.
And if he doesn't overcome my difficulty or defense, then it hits the shield, and that's that.
Yes.
But if he does, then the question is, do I mean it? Do I really mean this block? Do I lean into the block? Do I put more into the block? However, or even is the block just luckier? I don't care what the fiction is, just something, right?
Yes.
So with this, but it's associated with me as a protagonist. That's why it's my energy.